It's going to take a while to get through this. Alright, so let's clear off this desk and start cracking into these one by one. Okay, so the first one in no particular order. These are the orders I placed some time ago for the Raspberry Pi 4. We would have all seen the Raspberry Pi 4s. In fact, I've already done a review on it, but this is the 2 gig version, and this is one of the ones I managed to get from CanaKit. So I don't really need to review that because we've already seen it before. So this is the CanaKit version of the USB-C power adapter for the Pi 4. There's been a lot of issues with the Pi 4 and power because it's just not USB-C compliant, and I've already covered that in my Pi review, and it'll be interesting to see how the Raspberry Pi Foundation actually addresses that in the midterm. Anyway, we've already seen that one before, so let's move on. Okay, so next, this is, oh, part of it's come through. Okay, so I know exactly what this one is. This is an order I placed on AliExpress or Banggood. It's something that I saw over at Keen Maisel's place. It's essentially just a small sanding platform. It's something that's quite useful if you ever need to take a little bit off a PCB because it's slightly oversized, or you know, whatever. Quite handy to have something small like this you use to sand down. So let's fire it up and see how that goes. Nice of them to include the standard Aussie adapter. This is a fairly basic unit. They provide a power adapter that switches between, what was it, 12, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20 and 24 volts. That essentially just sets the speed of the sanding unit. It's sort of a little bit flimsy, but let's find a PCB. Maybe my old Raspberry Pi that I destroyed on the sanding table. See how this goes. What do we got? Voltage on, I don't even know what voltage it is. I don't know if it's, oh, here we go, 20 volt. Let's put it right down to 12 volts and see how that goes. Oh, hang on, I've got to actually connect the motor up. All right, so let's do that. These lugs are terrible. They're not even gripping on. What the heck's going on here? They're just sort of loose. Loose as all else. Anyway, that's probably good enough just to give it a whirl. Ah, nice. Oh. Okay. The one that Keen had was actually so much better. What I might have to do is just adjust these points here because it's starting to track off the rollers, so I might just have to adjust these. Come on, which one is it? Ah! Get it right, bozo. Okay, I want to wind it out and get this to go slightly out that way so it tracks a little bit that way. Okay, so that's a lot better. That's quite good. It's a noisy bugger. Oh, I think I've just buggered some of the belts because of not tracking across this roller properly. The reason why I wanted to get one is because I wanted to be able to just take a little bit off the PCB if I needed to. It's quite handy to have around. This came from Banggood. I think the belts are a little bit dodgy. What I might do is see if I can find a proper belt that's a bit better than these ones. That's pretty cheap. I think it was 50 bucks US or whatever it was. But anyway, that's quite good, apart from the dodgy connectors here, which I'll have to just solder these up properly. Let's move on to the next thing. Who made all this mess? Man, this dust gets everywhere. Okay, so the next one. I know what some of these packages are, but then there's also some packages I have no idea what they are. So this is one package, I have no idea what it is. Ah, excellent. Okay, this is quite interesting. Okay, so this is the Leez, or the Lenovo Leez P710, which is a board that hasn't really seen much advertising. I haven't really seen much mention of it anywhere, really. This runs the Rockchip RK3399 with 2 or 4 gig LP DDR4 RAM, SD slot, optional 16 gig eMMC. On the back side we've got an M2 key slot, but that's to be used for 4G LTE, not NVMe or any storage. USIM slot, gigabit Ethernet, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, 2 4-lane MIPI CSI connectors, HDMI capable of 4K 60Hz, USB 3 and 2, and also USB Type-C for power. A 40-pin GPIO header that, you know, who knows whether it's Pi compatible or not, but considering that the RK3399 uses 1.8 volt logic levels, unless they actually have a proper logic level buffer chip, then you'll be out of luck with being able to use the Raspberry Pi hats. It's got a soft power button, RTC, also it's got an audio jack as well. So this one's a pretty nice little board. I'll have to add this one to my list of boards to be reviewed as well. Okay, so the next one. This comes from Crowd Supply, I do believe. Come on, open your bugger. So Daryl's been in constant contact with me, providing me with a lot of these review units. So this is the Teardown 2019 that unfortunately I missed because I'm down under and everyone else is up the top. Daryl made me the honorary Teardown member. Excellent. Thanks very much, Daryl. Okay, so EraSynth Micro. Now, interestingly enough, the EraSynth guys actually did send me a unit. Daryl sent me one as well. So anyway, I've got 2 of them. I think I might give one of these away, so I don't need 2. So stay tuned at the end of this video to find out how you can actually win this EraSynth Micro. Excellent. So the EraSynth Micro, it's sort of like a mini software RF module, but it also has a whole lot of GPIOs you can access. There's an amp meter inside, you can control GPIOs and do all sorts of funky things. It's got an RF out and also a reference in as well as a secondary out. You know, one of the things you can do with it is, for example, block standard FM radio transmissions. Now this isn't the ideal aerial for RF transmissions, but you can still simulate blocking a standard radio transmission. So for example, there's a radio station in Sydney which is 103.2, so I'll set that, you need to use this thing too, so it's 103.200 kilohertz. And turn modulation on. It's FM. Well, the modulation frequency is basically what transmits out, so let's set that to say 3 kilohertz. So it'd be a 3 kilohertz sine wave coming out. Now the deviation, FM deviation is actually pretty important. Now look, I'm not an RF guy, but I know that the FM deviation ratio and the modulation index, 2 fairly key things that you need to get right. Now for a typical radio station, you're probably looking at an FM deviation ratio of about 5, and usually the maximum frequency deviation is around about 75 kilohertz, plus or minus 75 kilohertz. So we can always just chuck that in. It's, I don't know, it'll probably work, probably won't. Then once we've set that, then we've got that on. So we should be able to turn on a radio. I've got a radio here set to, there we go. So this is a radio station normally, and then turn the RF on. Man, it's that easy. So you can block it a fair amount. Now the amplitude is fairly low. Let's beef up the amplitude. So you should be able to block it from a fair distance. Now once again, this is not the right antenna for an FM broadcast. Just goes to show you what you can do with it. Now theoretically, shut up, how do you turn this off? So theoretically you can also block mobile phones as well. So let's try and block a mobile phone. Okay, so jamming a mobile signal isn't really that straightforward. We've got well, at least in Australia, we've got a bunch of frequencies that 4G can be used on. So 700 megahertz, 900 megahertz, 1.8 gigahertz, 2.1 and 2.6 gigahertz. It's not really as straightforward. You can't really just punch in a frequency and expect it to be jammed, because it uses a technology called spread spectrum. Not as straightforward as, for example, an FM or an AM signal. I can reduce the signal strength of the nearest tower. I can see the bars going down from 2 bars down to 1 bar. You know, there's a whole lot of factors at play here, and so I can't really jam a GSM signal unless I actually do intelligent jamming of the signal. But anyway, it's a good sort of proof of concept to see how well this EraSynth works. So the EraSynth Micro runs an Atmega 32U4, I think. So of course it's completely accessible from the Arduino IDE. So I've connected it up to my Hackintosh, and all you have to do is select the right board type, which is an Arduino Micro, then select the right serial port. So EraSynth have actually put up the firmware, or the default firmware that's currently running on this. So if I look at, would it be on diagnostics? Okay, yeah. So version 1.05, I think. Not sure what this version is. So let's download that. So that's theoretically the same firmware, so let's just compile it, see if it actually compiles, which it has done. Oh, hey, what's going on here? Okay, so depreciated values, that's alright. This should be programmed with the latest firmware, hopefully. Okay, so now we're seeing 1.07. That's really nice actually. They've done a really good job of making it pretty simple. So this whole interface is actually driven directly from the Atmega 32U4. For a pocket RF generator, this is really nice. And being able to access these GPIOs out the back is even better. I really like it, it's nice. Okay, so next up is why can't I open this? Okay, so this is the Khadas VIM3, and how do you get this box open? Far out. Well, that was really hard. So the Cadis Fin3, now this is running the AM Logic A311D, which is the Big Little architecture. So that's got 2.2 gigahertz Cortex A73s and 1.8 gigahertz Cortex A53s in the one sock. It also has a neural network accelerator which supports TensorFlow and Caffe. Let's see if I can crack this. Oh man, they make these boxes so tight. It also has an STM8S003, which is used for power control, 16 megabyte SPI flash. What else? It also has either 2 or 4 gig LPDDR4 RAM, 16 or 32 gig eMMC, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, gigabit Ethernet with Wacom LAN capabilities, which is nice. SD slot, USB 2.0, USB Type-C for power, which is good. HDMI supporting 4K at 60 Hz, and also supports HDCP 2.2, which is good. What else? It's on the back. There's MIPI DSI, MIPI CSI, also touch panel connectors. Also got an M2 key slot, which is really nice. This supports NVMe. Now I've said this before, the humble SD card is going to vanish and SBCs will be using NVMe instead. Really, an SBC running off NVMe is pretty fast. Quite frankly, I'm really getting sick of using these SD cards to run an OS. They're slow as a wet week and prone to corruption, so it's really good that they're on the way out. But of course, yeah, we've got SD card and SIM slot there as well. So it's a pretty decent little board. I won't review it in this mailbag because I like to do a proper review on these boards rather than sort of do a quick job of them. I'll add this to the list of boards that I'll be reviewing soon. If only they'd fix up this box, it's really annoying. Okay, so I have a number of boards I need to review. The Leez P710, Cadis VIM3. I've also got the Jetson Nano, a couple of banana pies that I've got to review, and nano pies. A couple of orange pies, a few more nano pies, and also Khadas VIM3 as well to throw in. I need to review all these boards, so you can see I've got a bit of a backlog. I'll put a call out to my patrons. So if you're a patron of this channel, head on over to the MickMake forums and you can vote on which board you want to be able to see next as a review. So as you may or may not know, my channel has been fairly quiet the last couple of months. In fact, since June of last year, I haven't really been publishing that many videos. And you may have seen that Are You OK video. And basically I pushed myself so much, I took on so much that I ran myself into the ground. Anyway, I've started a new year. I've pulled back on a lot of my activities that I was doing. And so I'll be able to get back into the swing of publishing videos regularly, which will be nice. So as I mentioned before, there's that EraSynth up for grabs. I'm going to give one of them away to one of my patrons. I don't know what the requirements are, but I'm sure I'll think of something. So anyway, if you're a patron, or in fact a previous patron from, let's say, June onwards, then I'll send you an email and with details on how to grab one of those EraSynths. Anyway, I'll be getting back into the swing of publishing. Normally I'll be publishing on a Saturday or Saturday night my time, which ends up being Saturday morning US time. So Saturday I'll be publishing. I'm aiming to publish on a weekly basis. It will be either a SBC review, it will either be the Roundup series. In fact, I'm renaming that to Romp. Thought it was a good name. Roundup of Maker products. I'm not going to put weekly in there because I'm not going to be doing it weekly. I'll more than likely be doing that monthly because then I can just collect everything and present a nice sort of best of Maker products. And as I mentioned before, I'll be running SB. That's a really noisy machine. Sorry, I got my latest video rendering on this machine, and because it's 43 degrees Celsius in Australia at the moment, this thing is going berserk with fans whizzing. So I've got a number of projects planned as well. Going to be looking at making more projects, probably less tutorials, because I've found that running a project, it's sort of like a tutorial anyway. So I'm not targeting a specific subject like what is I2C or what is MQTT. I may do that, I don't know. In fact, my Linux Foo series and my Docker Foo series, they're pretty easy to make for me. So I'm going to be still running with those. Sort of over last year, I'm into 2020 and I'm looking forward to getting back into the regular swing of producing videos. So there's a lot of really good stuff I've planned for this year. I'm not going to go overboard like I did last year. I'm not going to overcommit. I'll be taking a little bit more of a relaxed attitude to publishing videos. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you next week.